In the Gospels, we find John the Baptist baptizing people in the Jordan River. But where did the concept of baptism originate? Was this a command from God that we're not told about? Did John develop the concept of baptism? Was baptism being done before the New Testament? Why was John baptizing people in the Jordan River? Because the Bible is silent on these issues, churches have created their own doctrines concerning baptism. Some baptize only adults, and others will baptize infants. Some will sprinkle, and some will immerse. Some believe that it is a sign of one's faith, but others believe it is necessary for salvation. It is no wonder that there are so many different Christian denominations. The word baptism comes from the Greek noun baptisma, which is derived from the Greek verb baptizo, and means to wash. So technically, baptisma, the noun, means a washing. In the Hebrew Bible, the verb for washing is rachatz. While this word is used for the common act of washing, such as we see in Genesis 18:4, it is also used for the ritual washing of sacrificial animals, unclean people, clothing, and various articles as commanded by God and carried out by the Kohanim, the priests. Is there a connection between the ritual washing in the Old Testament and the baptism of the New Testament? Yes, but there is an intermediate practice that brings the two together. When Israel was taken into Babylonian captivity and no longer had access to the temple and the priesthood, the Jews developed a system of laws and customs to preserve the commandments of God that could no longer be observed. As an example, the dining table in the home became a substitute altar, and fathers would teach their children about the sacrifices with what was on the table. This would ensure that the people would not forget the commandments of God, and when they returned to the land, they would be able to continue the commandments. Another such custom was the mikvah. Because there was no more temple or priesthood, the Jews created the mikvah as a substitute for the ritual washings that God had commanded. Each community had a mikvah, a pool of living water, not stagnated water, but water that was continually flowing into and out of the pool. The mikvah was used for various reasons, including purification after an emission or childbirth, a sign of conversion to Judaism, the immersion of new utensils used in serving and eating food, and ritual purification before a holy day. As John the Baptist was a Jew who would be intimately familiar with the mikvah, and we can conclude that the baptism taught in the New Testament is the Jewish mikvah, or is at least derived from it. Incidentally, while the Hebrew Bible does not use the word mikvah in this context, it is used for a pool or collection of water. 1 Corinthians 1:14-16 says, I thank God that I baptized none of you, save Crispus and Gaius, lest any should say that I had baptized in my own name. And I baptized also the house of Stephanas. Besides, I know not whether I baptized any other. What is Paul talking about in this verse? In the first century Israel, a teacher would immerse his disciples in the mikvah in his name, meaning that the disciple is now following the teachings of this teacher. Apparently, Paul immersed Crispus, Gaius, and the household of Stephanas into his name, meaning that they became his disciples. This is what is meant in Acts 2:38 when it says, Be baptized, every one of you, in the name of Yeshua the Messiah. When one is baptized in Yeshua's name, it is signifying that he is now following the teachings of Yeshua. Now, to the reason that John the Baptist was baptizing in the Jordan River. Joshua 3 verse 14 says, "And it came to pass, when the people removed from their tents to pass over the Jordan, the priests that bear the Ark of the Covenant before the people." The Israelites were standing on the east bank of the Jordan River, and they passed through the river onto the west side of the river. From a Hebraic perspective, the land west of the Jordan River is the land of Israel and is symbolic of life, whereas the land east of the Jordan River, outside of the land of Israel, is symbolic of death. So the Israelites passed over from death to life. Romans 6 verse 4 says, "We were buried therefore with him through baptism unto death, that like as Messiah was raised from the dead through the glory of the Father, so we might walk in the newness of life." 1 John 3:14 says, "We know that we have passed out of death into life." The Hebrew word for passed through in Joshua 3:14 is the verb avar, and it means to pass or cross over or through. This word is the root of the name Ever or Eber. One who is descended from Eber is called an Ivri or Hebrew. Abraham is called a Hebrew because he is a descendant of Eber. But he also crossed over from death, outside of the land of Israel, unto life, the land of Israel that was promised to him and his descendants. John the Baptist was doing his mikveh in the Jordan River because this is where his ancestors crossed over from death to life.